Every civilization thinks it's different. Different people, different values, different time. And every civilization is wrong because no civilization chooses to fall into an economic trap. They build it slowly, piece by piece, while believing they're being responsible. This story doesn't start with greed. It starts with stability. Imagine a society that finally feels safe. Harvests are predictable. Trade works. Coins are trusted. People don't talk about survival anymore. They talk about improvement, better homes, better tools, better lives. That's the moment the trap begins to form, not because anyone plans it, because everyone reacts rationally. Meet Marcus. He owns a small plot of land just outside a growing town. His family has worked it for generations. The soil is decent. The yield isn't huge, but it's enough. Some years are better, some years are tight, but overall life works. Then the town grows. More people arrive, more demand. Prices rise, not sharply, just enough to notice. Tools cost a little more. Rent inside the town rises faster. Everyone shrugs. Growth always comes with friction. To keep up, Marcus borrows a small amount. Nothing dramatic, just enough to buy better equipment so he can produce more and sell more. It feels smart. Across town lives Lucius. He doesn't farm. He doesn't build. He lends. He has savings. He understands contracts. He doesn't force anyone. People come to him. Lucius isn't evil. He's cautious. He lends to people who look reliable, people like Marcus. At first, nothing changes. Marcus produces more. He sells more. He pays back on time. Everyone wins. Then a dry season hits. Not a disaster, just bad enough. The harvest drops. Not enough to starve. Just enough to miss a payment. Lucius extends the loan, adds a small fee. It's reasonable. Marcus agrees. What choice does he have? Next year is better, but not that much better. Prices of tools don't drop. Taxes don't disappear. The market doesn't care about last year's drought. Marcus works harder, longer days, fewer breaks. He's still productive, just less flexible. That's the first thing he loses. Not freedom. Options. Around him, the town keeps expanding. More trade, more contracts, more paper, more rules. Everything looks organized, efficient, advanced. But flexibility quietly drains away. Some neighbors sell portions of their land to stay afloat. Some lease instead of owning. Some leave. Lucius doesn't notice them as people anymore. He notices patterns, risk levels, reliability. His world becomes numbers, not faces, and the system rewards him for it. Those who still own land now owe payments. Those who lend now control timelines. No one calls it control. They call it order. Marcus hasn't failed. He hasn't been reckless. He followed the logic everyone else followed. Borrow to improve. Scale to survive. Commit to stability. But stability has a cost. Every promise he makes locks his future tighter. Every contract reduces his margin for error. Every reasonable adjustment shifts power slightly away from him. Not all at once. One by one. From the outside, the civilization looks stronger than ever. More trade, more structure, more wealth moving through fewer hands. From the inside, something subtle has changed. People don't talk about what they want anymore. They talk about what they can afford to risk. And that's when the trap is fully built. Because once options disappear, escape stops being a decision. It becomes a memory. Here's the mistake most people make when they think about economic traps. They imagine a moment where everything breaks. A crash, a revolt, a clear villain stepping into the light. That moment almost never comes. Because systems don't tighten suddenly. They tighten quietly, by rewarding the right behavior. Marcus didn't lose because he was lazy. He didn't lose because he was foolish. He lost because he stayed reasonable for too long. After the dry season, Marcus adjusts. He stops taking risks. He plants safer crops instead of profitable ones. He repairs tools instead of replacing them. He keeps cash aside instead of investing. From the outside, he looks responsible. From the inside, he's shrinking. Lucius notices this shift immediately, not emotionally, structurally. Safer behavior means predictability. Predictability means lower risk. Lower risk means more lending, on better terms. So Lucius offers something new, a longer contract. Lower payments now, higher total payments later. It sounds generous. Marcus hesitates. Long contracts feel heavy. But everyone around him is signing similar deals. The town's markets now expect steady output. Buyers want guarantees. Uncertainty is punished. So Marcus signs. And this is where the trap changes shape. Before, debt was something you escaped. Now it becomes something you manage. People stop asking, how do I get out? They start asking, how do I stay in without falling behind? That shift matters more than any law. Over time, Marcus notices something unsettling. When prices rise, his payments don't adjust. When costs increase, his contract doesn't care. When demand spikes, his gains are capped. The upside is limited. The downside is unlimited. Lucius, meanwhile, is insulated. He doesn't depend on weather. He doesn't depend on soil. He depends on agreements. And agreements always survive longer than people. Around them, the town evolves. Ownership becomes fragmented. Land is divided into claims, leases, future rights. Fewer people hold the underlying assets. More people work them. No one announces this shift. It's not debated. It simply becomes normal. Children grow up assuming this is how life works. You don't own your future. You service it. Here's the clever part of the system. It turns dependence into virtue. Those who resist long contracts are labeled unreliable. Those who accept them are praised as disciplined. Those who fail are blamed for mismanagement. Marcus hears this language everywhere now, in the market, in conversation, even in himself. When things go wrong, he doesn't curse the structure. He blames his decisions, his timing, his luck. That self-blame is not accidental. A system survives longer when people internalize its failures. Lucius never needs to threaten Marcus. He doesn't need guards or force. The contract does the work for him. Deadlines arrive on their own. Consequences feel impersonal, almost natural, like gravity. Years pass. Marcus works more hours than his father ever did. Yet his control keeps shrinking. He can't leave easily. He can't pause. He can't experiment. Every option now carries penalties. And here's what makes the trap nearly invisible. From above, productivity is up. Trade is smoother. Wealth is concentrated, but efficiently. The civilization looks stable, strong even. But stability built on locked options doesn't create resilience. It creates fragility. One shock doesn't just hurt, it cascades. And when that shock comes, the system won't break where people expect. It won't start with the lenders. It won't start with the elite. It will start with people like Marcus, quietly stepping out of ownership piece by piece until there's nothing left to step back into. And by the time anyone notices, the question won't be, how did this happen? It will be, when did we stop having a choice? Because the trap doesn't close with a slam, it closes with a click. And most people never hear it. Here's the part nobody expects. Civilizations don't fall because they fail. They fall because they succeed in the wrong direction. By the time Marcus realizes something is wrong, the system around him is praised as a model of progress. Trade is smoother. Records are cleaner. Payments are predictable. Disputes are fewer. On paper, everything works. That's what makes the trap dangerous. Because when a system starts working too well, people stop questioning what it's actually doing. Marcus now lives in a world where access matters more than ownership. He doesn't own the land outright anymore, but he has rights to use it. He doesn't control the harvest, but he has guaranteed buyers. He doesn't choose his prices, but he has stability. Each trade-off sounds reasonable on its own. Together, they form a cage. What Marcus doesn't see is that the system has shifted its center of gravity. Power no longer comes from producing things. It comes from controlling conditions. Who sets the terms? Who defines risk? Who decides what counts as responsible behavior? And here's the quiet trick. Those decisions are never framed as power. They're framed as standards. Standard contracts, standard expectations, standard timelines. Anyone who can't meet them is labeled inefficient. Over time, fewer people qualify. Not because they got worse, but because the standards moved. Marcus notices something strange in the marketplace. New opportunities appear, but they're never meant for people like him. They require upfront guarantees, long commitments, and buffers against loss. In other words, they reward those who already have margin. The system starts feeding itself. People with leverage get safer deals. Safer deals create more leverage. More leverage unlocks even better terms. Meanwhile, everyone else is told to optimize, work smarter, be flexible, plan better. None of that changes the structure. It just keeps people busy inside it. This is where civilizations start mistaking motion for progress. Activity increases, complexity increases, but choice decreases. Marcus feels this deeply when he tries to step away for a season. Not to quit, just to pause. He's exhausted. The land needs rest. He needs clarity. The system doesn't allow it. Payments don't pause. Contracts don't breathe. Obligations don't care about context. Time itself has been claimed. That's when Marcus understands something terrifying. The system doesn't need him to succeed. It only needs him to continue. As long as he produces enough to service the structure, his future is irrelevant. And he's not alone. Across the civilization, millions live like this. Different jobs, different tools, same position. They're not starving. They're not chained. They're just constrained. Enough comfort to survive, not enough freedom to exit. This is the stage where people stop dreaming about change and start managing decline. They lower expectations. They redefine success. They call endurance a virtue. And the system rewards them for it. From above, everything still looks stable, even prosperous. But the foundation has shifted from resilience to dependence. One shock, or not even a huge one, exposes the truth. A missed cycle, a disrupted flow, a sudden mismatch between obligation and capacity. When that happens, there's no buffer, no flexibility, no room to adapt, because adaptability was optimized out. And here's the most important realization. No one designed this outcome in secret. There was no single mastermind, no evil counsel, no dramatic betrayal, just incentives stacking on incentives. Each decision made sense locally, each improvement solved a short-term problem, each fix narrowed the future slightly more. Until the civilization wakes up one day and realizes it has built a machine that only moves in one direction. Forward. No reverse, no exits, no pause button. People like Marcus don't revolt at this stage. They rationalize. They say, this is just how things work now. They say, every system has trade-offs. They say, at least it's better than chaos. And that's the moment the trap fully locks. Because when people stop imagining alternatives, the system doesn't need force anymore. It has compliance. But here's the part that should bother you. This pattern doesn't belong to one era, or one culture, or one level of technology. Change the tools, keep the structure, and it rebuilds itself, again and again. Which raises a disturbing question, one Marcus never had the chance to ask. If every civilization builds the same trap, what makes us think this time is different? Because in the final stage, the system doesn't collapse from rebellion. It collapses when it can't pretend anymore, and that moment always comes later than people expect. Civilizations don't realize they're trapped when the trap is built. They realize it when they try to move, and nothing moves with them. By the time Marcus reaches old age, the system around him feels permanent, not because it's ancient, but because no one remembers anything else. Children grow up assuming this is just how life works. Payments before choices, obligations before options, permission before action. No one teaches this directly. It's learned through experience. A failed attempt, a rejected request, a quiet, that's not how things are done. Over time, people stop pushing against the walls because they stop seeing them. That's the final evolution of the trap, not control through force, control through normalization. At this stage, the system no longer needs to punish people often. It only needs to reward the ones who comply best, those who adapt fastest, those who internalize the rules and enforce them on others. They become managers of a structure they don't own. From the outside, this looks like order, efficiency, stability. From the inside, it feels like shrinking air. People sense something is wrong, but they can't name it. Productivity rises, yet stress never leaves. Tools improve, but time feels tighter. Life gets easier on paper and harder in reality. And because no single rule feels unfair on its own, the system stays protected. That's the genius of it. If the system were cruel, people would resist. If it were chaotic, people would reject it. So instead, it stays reasonable. Reasonable enough to survive. Reasonable enough to defend. This is why collapse never looks like collapse at first. It looks like maintenance, patching, adjusting, rebalancing. Every fix adds complexity. Every safeguard reduces flexibility. Every optimization removes another escape route. Until one day, the system needs perfect conditions just to function. And perfect conditions never last. A disruption hits. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Just enough. Something arrives late. Something costs more. Something breaks the rhythm. People expect relief. Instead, pressure increases. Because the system was never built to protect them, it was built to protect itself. That's when the language changes. What used to be called support becomes dependency. And what used to be rights become privileges. What used to be temporary becomes permanent, and people are told to be patient. They always are. Here's the quiet truth most civilizations learn too late. Systems don't collapse when people are angry. They collapse when people are exhausted. When maintaining the structure costs more energy than living inside it is worth. When compliance no longer buys stability, only survival. And when the story people were told stops matching what they experience. That's when trust breaks. Not all at once, not loudly. It leaks. And once trust leaks out of an economic system, no amount of rules can replace it. Because money is not just a tool. It's a belief system. And beliefs only work while people believe them. Marcus never sees the collapse. Most people don't. They live their lives managing the trade-offs, explaining the rules to the next generation, teaching them how to survive inside a structure that already decided their limits. The system outlives them until it doesn't. And when it finally cracks, people ask the wrong question. They ask, who caused this? But history keeps giving the same answer. No one person did. Civilizations don't fail because of greed. They fail because of structure, because they keep building systems that trade resilience for control, flexibility for efficiency, freedom for predictability. Again and again, and every time people believe they've learned from the past, until they rebuild the same trap with better tools. So if this feels familiar, well, that's not an accident. Change the language, change the technology, change the scale, keep the incentives, and the outcome stays the same. Because systems don't collapse when people rebel. They collapse when they can't hide what they are anymore. And by the time that happens, there's no clean way out. If this pattern felt uncomfortably familiar, that's the point. Like the video if it made you think and subscribe. if you want more history that explains the present without pretending to fix it.